Morning, Erin, and thank you very much for being out and about on this cold August morning. Judgment, we understand, is now expected at 10 o'clock this morning. The ruling, of course, we understand is going to have a monumental bearing on the leadership at the NPA. Can you tell us why?
Yes, Dan, that's right. We're expecting a juggernaut decision, as how I've described it, from the Constitutional Court this morning over the leadership of the NPA. And of course, you're right that very much centre stage here is Shaun Abrahams, but also his predecessor, Mxolisi Nxasana. And that's because we had a High Court ruling in December of last year over the way in which he exited his position as NDPP and the agreement that he and then President Jacob Zuma reached, which involved a very, very delicious, you could say, golden handshake of over 17 million rand. And what flows from the decision from the High Court that exit was unconstitutional and invalid is that Shaun Abrahams' appointment then too by association was unconstitutional and invalid. That's something that Abrahams soon announced after the judgment he would appeal. And then we had this application from various civil society organizations, NGOs, asking for a confirmation of the High Court order of last year. And what it will do is it will clarify Abrahams' status and then give President Cyril Ramaphosa, as he is today, the power, the sort of material he needs to make a decision on Abrahams' future.
Now, this judgment first is coming following an application for what we understand was a confirmation order linked to a High Court ruling last December. What's that about?
So as we've already heard, it has to do with that decision about Nxasana's golden handshake of over 17 million rand, the way in which he exited the NDPP after negotiations with President Jacob Zuma, as he was at the time, and then Abrahams' appointment thereafter. There was a brief period during which there was an acting NDPP, and Abrahams has used that as grounds to say that, in fact, his appointment was entirely valid, that he's fit and proper for the job. But, Dan, what's also important here is that the Constitutional Court today will make a ruling on two sections of the NPA Act. Why is that important? Why does it matter? Because the civil society organization, the NGO CASAC, the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, is saying that there are two aspects of the NPA Act which give too much power to the president. Whoever the president may be, whoever she or he may be, it gives them too much power to suspend the appointment of the NDPP without pay, pending an inquiry, amongst other things. And CASAC wants that aspect of the law changed along with the confirmation order of the decision of the High Court from December last year. So in that full bundle of decisions we're expecting today, very significant decisions on the way forward for an institution of state which has long been seen to be far too politicized. And
Erin, while I've got you, we remember that President Cyril Ramaphosa, as president, when he became president in February, one of the first decisions he made was that he will not be appealing that High Court decision that you have referred to, the one that we saw in December. Can you remind our viewers why?
Yes, quite a significant decision, especially the timing of it, coming as it did soon after President Cyril Ramaphosa took office. Now, we must remember when the court decided that Zuma was not in a position to appoint the NDPP when it made its judgment in December of last year, they suggested a 60-day window period during which they advised that the deputy president, who was then Cyril Ramaphosa, make the decision on who would replace Abrahams. Now, of course, Abrahams appealed that decision, which sort of put that whole order on ice. But then when Ramaphosa came into office as president, he announced that unlike President Jacob Zuma, Ramaphosa would not be appealing the decision and that he was withdrawing that opposition as president to the High Court decision, saying that Abrahams should be replaced with someone else. And interestingly, going back to the letter that was sent to the Constitutional Court on around the 23rd of February, which was just before hearings in this matter we're going to hear judgment on today, they said, and I think this is the most significant part of the letter, with the current regime change and after consultation with the current president of the Republic of South Africa, we are instructed to inform this court that the first respondent is no longer prosecuting its appeal. So saying with the new dawn, with this new era of leadership in the presidency, Ramaphosa had decided not to appeal the decision of the High Court. And now today he and the rest of the country will hear an answer on what happens. Will he stay or will he go to the current NDPP, Shaun Abrams?
Yeah, hopefully after today's ruling that's going to be made public after 10 o'clock, Ramaphosa will no longer feel hamstrung in addressing the issues that have been plaguing the NPA. Very briefly, Erin, I just want to get your take from this before I let you go. 166 days it took the Constitutional Court to make a decision, and underlying that there's been that subtext in commentary that perhaps the justices were divided on this ruling. I'm hoping that we're going to find out if they were really. What's your sense?
Yes, certainly there has been some commentary and criticism from political analysts and the like about the duration of time between those arguments at the end of February, the last day of court here in February, and the judgment we're expecting today, you know, almost 6 months after those arguments. And why did it take the Constitutional so long in this matter? I'm really not comfortable in navel-gazing too much about what the motivations may be. As you've said, perhaps it is because there was some division between the justices, but certainly, Dan, going back through those arguments yesterday and reviewing them on ENCA's website, where we have the full stream of arguments from February, it seems that the judges sent and asked very repeatedly and pointedly whether or not they were in a position to make a decision that even in public perception might be seen to taint Abrams' reputation. Something from the line of questioning, at least, they seemed unwilling or uncomfortable doing, particularly because at the time that they made those comments, these several justices, including Kampepe, Kachalia and the like, they hadn't heard arguments from Abrams himself on why he considered himself fit and proper. That has since changed. Abrams has made representations to the Constitutional Court, arguing his case, pleading his case, you could say. But the justices are certainly aware from looking at that line of questioning in February that they have a very delicate decision to make here, and the consequences are wide-reaching. Not only that, but they also are going to make a decision on changing the NPA Act, and what's important there is that will set the tone for the future dynamic, the future relationship between the NDPP and the president. And if you look at the history of the NPA since the inception of democratic South Africa, the NPA and its leadership has been beleaguered with problems, and not only under the Zuma leadership or the Ramaphosa leadership, but also back to the Mbeki presidency. And these are all things that need to be taken in context when we look at today's judgment and the way forward for our current president and the NDPP.
You mentioned the Mbeki era. One remembers the name Vusi Pikoli, and there's a lot of speculation about that name currently. Erin, we'll leave you to get ready for that hearing. Thank you very much. That's